Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hi, welcome back to the Stepmom Side podcast and Happy New Year. This is the first podcast episode of the year, which is crazy to me that we're already in January of 2025. And I don't know about you, but I love a fresh start, whether it's a new week, a new month, a new year. I personally don't do New Year's resolutions because I feel like you just set yourself up for failure, but I do like to set like my intentions and like, okay, this year I'm focusing on this or this, like last year, I don't know, I feel like it flew by and I don't feel like there was ever like any rhyme or reason for things. I was just like hanging on by the seat of my pants a lot of the year. And this year, my word of the year is going to be intentional. I don't know if you choose words of the year. I personally do because I feel like it sets you up for not flying by the seat of your pants. And last year I didn't choose a word of the year. And like I definitely felt it. So like I said, this year, my word of the year is intentional. And for me, it's just like being purposeful with my time, my relationships, my work, my me time, my whatever it is that I'm doing. So I'm not just like, I don't know, just freaking figure it out. But I mentioned this in the last podcast episode too, like doom scrolling is like one of those things that I'm really going to try to like limit this year. I would love to say, hey, you know what, girlfriend, like I am not going to doom scroll at all this year. But like that's not reasonable. That's not like even a realistic goal. Like I know that I know that I'm gonna like get sucked in, but I'm going to be intentional with my time and not spend 45 minutes, an hour each time that I'm caught doom scrolling, like actually just doom scrolling. So here's why I think that picking a word matters. Like it can act as a compass for like your decisions and your actions throughout the year. So if I'm being intentional, like, okay, I'm going to be intentional with my time, that means that I'm not going to be doom scrolling. I'm going to be sitting here recording a podcast episode, or maybe I'm going to be doing a bunch of them. I would like to be more intentional about my time and batching. Like, okay, this day I'm going to record X number of podcasts. Tomorrow I'm going to work on community stuff. The next day I'm going to work on coaching stuff or course stuff or just making sure that like my days are really well planned out. So having a single word acts as a compass for decisions and your actions, like I said, throughout the year. And this practice can help stepmoms that feel overwhelmed, resentful, or stuck because, okay, let's say that you're going to join me and your word is going to be intentional. If your word is intentional and you want to work on like your relationships, let's say that you're really struggling in a relationship with your stepkid or your stepkids, you can say, okay, I might be struggling right now, but what I'm going to do is be intentional about my actions or words or behavior towards said stepkid. Like I'm going to show up because what I want to be is intentional and not just be like, I'm just not going to show up because I don't feel like it today. I'm working on building a better relationship with this kid, this person, this whoever it is, or whatever it is. Meaning, like, it could be like you could be building a better relationship with like your workout habits or your eating habits or your sleep habits or what. So, whatever it is just doing it, even though sometimes you feel like the last thing I want to do is do that. So, just it's really helpful when you feel all of the things because it's kind of like a grounding thing. And like you can just come back to it and be like, okay, this year I'm being intentional. This year I'm doing whatever it is that you're going to do. So I want to just like, what do you want your year to feel like? What do you want your year to look like? And I think those are really really great words are hard today. Really great questions to start with because if you know what you want your year to look like, amazing. So overarching, we want our year to look like this. Then we can break that down into smaller actionable things. Like you can break them down into quarters. You can break your year down into months. You can break it down into weeks or days. And so let's say that you're working on, I'll just like work this for you. So if you are trying to be intentional with your relationship with your step kids, then something that you can do is like, okay, I want to, at the end of the year, have a better relationship than I do now. Perfect. I love that for you. What does that look like? So if you break it down by quarter, like bigger goals, like, okay, maybe in quarter one, you're working on maybe just like connecting with them or bonding with them. Like maybe right now you don't like them. And so you're thinking, okay, I'm going to work on just finding something that they are interested in and learning about that or spending time with them doing that or inviting them to do that with me. Maybe quarter two, you're going to work on spending more one-to-one, one-on-one time together. Maybe that's happened in quarter one, and now like quarter two, like I'm going to work on spending more time together. Maybe in quarter three, like you're going to work on like letting, I don't know, a few of their minor annoyances that drive you bonkers, you're going to work on letting them go. And maybe in quarter four, you're going to work on like building that relationship. Okay, we've got, 9 months of like really good, solid relationship built up. Here's what we're going to do in, you know, Q4. Like we're going to work on that going forward. Okay, so in quarter one, if you are, building on like those little things that your stepkid enjoys, or that one specific thing, like each month you could learn something new about it, or you could, find a different angle to work or whatever it is. And then you can break it down weekly. And then depending on your custody schedule, there are different things that you could do daily, whether it's you guys sit and do something together. I don't recommend doing every single day something together. It can be a lot, like especially if you're just starting out. So take it really, really slow in Q1 if that's something that you are like trying to work on is like your relationship with them. But yeah, you can break it down and it can just be like, okay, I'm going to be intentional. So I'm going to work on learning whatever it is. I'm going to work on learning the jargon or the lingo of whatever game they're playing or whatever their friends are doing. And it might sound or it might feel ridiculous, but like if you break things down into actionable steps and you can like implement them, that is the way to go. Because it's really easy to say, like, oh, yeah, I just want a better year or I just want a better relationship with them. Again, great. But like, what does that actually look like? What are you trying to go for? That's where like the magic happens. That's where you need to like work on like the goals. Like, okay, and then like let's break them down because soon enough, like December 30th of 2025 is going to be here and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, we're still here. And I just want to tell you like a reminder, things are going to ebb and flow. Like there are going to be good days, there are going to be bad days. So just build in that time for things to like not go so well. And if you're not in the Stepmom Side community, here's a shameless plug, like join the community and you can celebrate your wins in there. You can, hey, this isn't going really well. Like how is a way that you guys have worked through this? Get the support for like the highs and also get the support for the lows. So that way you've got people to go to like cheer you on and like celebrate your wins, but then also people to go to when you're not feeling that great and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's a lot harder than I thought to like build a better relationship with my stepkids. So there you go, aliciacresco.com/community if you are looking for a community to help you through like your stepmom struggles. So be intentional with your emotions though too. Like, and if you're like me, and I hear this a lot from stepmoms that I coach, like letting go of resentment, guilt, frustration, but like replacing it with, I don't know, compassion, maybe a little bit of clarity. Like I said, like if you are intentional about what your goals are or like what your overarching theme is for 2025, then it's easy to just like pick a path and like follow that along and you can deviate if you need to deviate. But if you are, stuck in your resentment, if you're stuck in your frustration, if you're stuck in the overwhelm, if you're stuck in the anger of like, my partner's got a pass, we constantly have to deal with the kids as mom, whatever it is, that isn't going to serve you. You can be pissed, you can be overwhelmed, you can be angry, you can be frustrated, you can be all of these things, but like you can't pack up and stay there. You can't, nothing good is going to come from that. That's why I'm like, be intentional with your emotions. Again, be intentional with those relationships with your kids. Like recognize when you need to say no and giving yourself permission to set limits without guilt. It doesn't always feel good to say no or to say, hey, I can't make it to X, Y, and Z because of whatever. But it's okay for everyone, including your stepkids, at some point to feel disappointment. It's okay for them to feel sad. It's okay for them to feel mad. That should obviously not be like the goal, but it's okay for people to feel those emotions because honestly, like emotions are just emotions. Happy isn't a good emotion and anger is a bad emotion. They are just that, they're just emotions. So it's okay for you to say no. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be some guilt attached to it, but it's okay for you to say no. Work on getting through that guilt and learning how to say no without being like that tight, like a lump in your throat, or like your hands are sweaty, or your heart is racing because, oh my gosh, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? What are they going to do because I'm not, or whatever. Like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. But also, like, be be intentional about like recognizing and understanding the challenges that are going to come. I talked about this before, like you're going to have dad guilt, like from your partner that you're going to have to face. There are tricky dynamics with their mom. There's going to be unpredictable schedule changes. Those challenges are going to come at like the worst possible time. And this is why, if you've been in coaching with me, you've heard me say, we need to practice what we're going to do when those challenges arise. Because if not, you are you're gonna be like up shit's creek without a paddle, and you're just gonna be like, what the hell do I do now? And there's probably gonna be like an emotional lash out. There's going to be things that are said that you probably didn't want to say. You might have been feeling them, and they might have been like real, honest, raw emotions. And now you're like, oh, I wish I could take those words back, or I wish I could take that behavior back. But learning what to do or practicing what to do when a challenge shows up is going to be your oh my gosh, it's going to be your saving grace. Like that's like the best way for me to put it because when those challenges arise and you know that they're going to, you are already going to be prepared for what you're going to do. And I will tell you, 100% of the time, people either fight or they flight. And fight, I don't mean like physically or emotionally, but I just mean like, okay, I'm going to stay here at this really challenging situation just came up, but I already know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to execute the plan as I've practiced it, right? Like you play like you practice. So if you don't practice anything at all, when things get really hard, you're going to fight and whatever's going to happen is just going to happen. And then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like I said, like you're going to be like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have said that, or I wish I wouldn't have done that. Practice, 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 practice what you're going to do when things get challenging because they are going to get challenging. So just be intentional, recognize that there's going to be challenges and figure out like what you're going to do prior to that happening. So here's how I want you to get started with like picking out a word for yourself. Reflect on last year. What went well? What worked? What didn't go well? What didn't work? And figure out like, okay, what do I want to change for 2025? I know we're literally one weekend, the 7 days in today, but like what worked, what didn't work, what went well, what didn't go well. And think about how you want to feel at the end of this year. Like I said, like if you are going to be intentional with like your relationships for your stepkid, like at the end of this year, maybe you want to feel like more peace, maybe you want to feel more calm, maybe you want to feel settled, content, happy, joyful, confident. And maybe you don't want to feel what you're feeling now. Resentment, anger, annoyed, irritated, frustrated, like an outsider, less than, like a third wheel. So if you want to feel all of those other things like peace, freedom, belonging, joy, the confidence, growth, like you have to set that goal now. You have to set that intention. I keep going back to that word because that's my word of the year, but like you have to set that now and then like take the steps to get there. And I just want to remind you that it's not about perfection, it's about progress and alignment and doing the things that feel good to get you where you want to be. Like we're playing the long game. Like, what is our end game here? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Let's do that. So it's not about perfection. Remember, I had talked about, being in the community, somebody to celebrate your lows with, also somebody to celebrate your highs with. It's about progress. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's not about perfection. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. And life happens. There's going to be whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So just make sure that you're being intentional with whatever it is that you want to do. And if one of your intentions this year is to let go of those heavy emotions like resentment or frustration, I have something just for you. I did talk about it in the last podcast episode of 2023, but I am revamping, completely redoing Resentment to Relief, a stepmom's guide to letting go. So you're going to have in this course, if you're interested, and it's coming out in February, actionable tips and steps to release resentment, mindset shifts, strategies to reclaim your peace and joy in your stepmom role so you don't lay awake at bed crying yourself to sleep or fretting all night and then same thing is happening the next morning and you're just like, ah. But this course aligns with being intentional about your emotions, about your happiness, about where you want to go in your stepmom life and where you want to go in your stepmom journey, how you want your house to feel, how you want your stepkids to feel, how you want your partner to feel, and if you've got kids of your own, how you want them to feel like in your house. But also, like, how do you want to feel? Do you want to feel happiness? Do you want to feel that joy? Do you want to feel like you belong? Are you tired of listening to like the resentment running around rent free in your head and you being pissed off about everything? You're going to need to be like in this course. So, this course is your opportunity to finally let go of what's been weighing you down and step into the intentional, confident stepmom you want to be. So, to get on the wait list, because again, it's not coming out to February, head to aliciacrasco.com/relief. And you don't have to navigate these challenges alone. I know how hard it is to navigate them alone. I know how hard it is to make changes when it comes to your step family life because sometimes you're the only one that's making changes. You are the only one that's being the bigger person. You are the only one that is doing all of the things. And sometimes I joke with my coaching clients about this and I'm like, the crazy thing is that like we didn't create the problem as stepmoms, but yet we are the ones that are going and like getting the help to improve the situation. Not necessarily fix it, 'cause you can't fix something you didn't break, but like improve the situation. Like, how messed up is that? Or, if you come in without kids of your own and now you've got stepkids, you're like, how am I a much better parent than my partner and their ex? Like, how am I parenting their kids better? Or I have better ideas than they do? Like, what is happening? So, I know how hard it is. You don't have to do these alone. I'm here to guide you. Resentment to Relief comes out in February, but don't do this alone. Go ahead to aliciacrasco.com/relief just to get on the wait list. But here's the thing about choosing your word and just like knowing where you're going in 2025 and beyond. You feel centered, you feel, I mean, if you actually pick a word and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to have, and you're going to hold on to it, it's like yours. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this because it's mine. I've chosen to do this. I'm making the changes, not for anyone else. We're not picking this word to like make changes for anyone else. We're picking this word to make changes for ourselves, right? Because it starts with you. But you get to decide how your year shapes up for you and what happens. And if you pick that word and you hold on to it and you live by that word, your life is going to look vastly different come December 31st, 2025. So if you pick a word, we've shared on social media or, send it to me. And if you do share it on social media, just tag me. I'm at Alicia Crasco. And if you've got a word, send it to me at Alicia Crasco. Just DM it to me on Instagram. But here's the thing. My word is intentional. So this year I'm gonna be a lot more intentional with like relationships, work, my time, not doom scrolling, and just being intentional and being present, like being here where I am. And I would say the last like half week, I guess, because it's January 7th, and my daughter went back to school yesterday. It's been really nice, but also since the first, like just being intentional about where I am, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be focused here right now, talking to you on this podcast. If you were at my house and we were hanging out, I'm going to be here talking to you, hanging out with you, spending time with you. That's something that is honestly one of my strong suits. Like if I'm with somebody, I'm with them doing whatever it is that I'm doing with them. Like I'm not a big person on like, okay, I'm with you, but here, let me be texting this person or posting on social or, I don't do a lot of like behind the scenes content because when I am with somebody or doing something, I'm with them and doing that, which is kind of why it's really hard for me, like when everyone's home, because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many people here that it's so overwhelming. There's a lot of chaos. But being intentional about where I am and who I'm with has really helped me over the last few days because I'm not constantly like task switching. I'm just one person, one task, one whatever it is I'm doing. And that's where I am in it. I find it so much easier. So thank you so much for tuning into this week's podcast episode. If you haven't subscribed to the Stepmom Side podcast, please subscribe. You'll get notifications on when new podcast episodes come out every Tuesday. If you haven't left a review, please leave a rating and a review and share this podcast episode with a stepmom that might need a little bit of extra encouragement. And don't forget the waitlist for Resentment to Relief, a stepmom's guide to letting go is waiting for you at aliciacrasco.com/relief. And I will chat with you next week. And I cannot wait to support you this year. Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crasco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.